My name is Joey. I'm joined by Neil.
Hello.
And by Dom.
Hi there.
And by Imogen.
Hello, Joey.
It's what lots of people are calling the classic lineup.
Yeah. It's known as.
Now then, how is everyone feeling?
We've gone through all the stages of grief. Some of us are probably more advanced than others, I think. Yeah, doing all right over here. Doing all right.
My first question will be, before we do moments of the week, Imogen, I'm guessing you didn't go all the way back to London from Sunderland.
Well, I did eventually, but not in the evening, no.
Have you recovered tired-wise from...
No, I haven't, and neither has my voice by the sounds of it. No, I haven't. And I'll tell you for why. Because as I left, I thought nothing will ever be as bad as Luton. I feel calm, I feel zen. I've accepted what's happened. We've had a great season. Let them go on and see what they can do against Sheffield United with my blessing. And then I put my head on that pillow and all I could see was Haji Wright missing that last minute.
Oh, don't.
And I couldn't, I saw every hour of that night. I woke up being like, for fuck's sake, all he had to do was get it on target. So no, I haven't fully recovered from my sleep.
So do you know what makes that 10 times worse for me personally?
Yes,
and really, as we know, it's all
about you.
Is Paul, who I happened to be stood next to during the game. Throughout the second half, his contention was that we take Haji Wright off and bring on BTA because he didn't feel like he played particularly well. Not exactly a unique sentiment, given the way that the internet has responded to Haji Wright's perceived inability. And I kept saying to him, the thing with Wright is that, you know, when you get a chance in the last minute and it falls to him, he's going to score it. That's the sort of thing that he does.
Yeah.
And then he had it. And now I'd have to check my notes because I haven't fully watched it all back. I don't think he did score it, did he?
No.
He didn't.
There's this odd situation where I think he would have done better if he'd not touched it at all.
Yes.
I think life could have ended up far happier today if he just let it go past him.
And on top of that is Brandon Thomas Asante won the ball back in extra time. Exceptionally, he did wonderfully well to bring it under control under what was quite difficult. And then he put right through. And not for the first time that night, you thought, if you just drive through, we might be okay here. But he didn't again.
No, he did not.
So I had to, as usual, gracefully concede to Paul that even though the world doesn't necessarily work like this, he in fact might have been right.
Paul's always right.
Not always right. Don't ever say that ever again.
Not at these times.
I'll end this podcast on 3 minutes, 30 seconds, which, given the recent feedback to some of the past episodes, I think would be a very popular outcome for this.
It's all right, guys. I'm back. Don't worry. I was only gone for 2. Jesus.
I know. I do apologise. Right. Okay. Let's do moments of the week. Even though it is 2 huge games, it is still only a week, isn't it? I suppose. Dom, you're nodding like a man who looks like he's got some moments.
Yeah. So, I'll just go with Friday night, which was just lovely all round. Especially where I was at, it just felt like basically the Avengers of Coventry City fandom coming together, and we were just having a lovely evening. You know, the result could have gone better, but I just thought the atmosphere on Friday, just like throughout, was just incredible, and there was just so much joy there. Like, people really wanted to be there. We really wanted to make it a good atmosphere, and I think we really delivered on that. And I think one moment that really stands out, and it's actually, I put it in the last article I wrote right after the Sunderland game, was some point after Rudoni's equaliser, the F1 Mason Clark song was going around, and then there was just like 2 rows in front of me, a woman who must have been in her 80s off her feet, just swaying to the music, and it was just the most fantastic thing ever. Like, can you imagine reaching that age and still being able to lose yourself in a moment like that? I think that was really like incredible and heart lifting, and I think that just like really shows like the power of football, that he just gets swept away in a moment like that. And that was just what was so good about Friday. It just felt like we're Coventry City now, and we're just in an amazing position as a football club. We've sold out our home stadium for however many times this season. It's just a cracking place to be, and even though we didn't win a place in the Premier League, I think it's quite clear we're just a club in a very rude state of health, and this is a great moment to be a Coventry City fan.
Yes, Dom.
Top that, guys. Who's going next?
I don't have I have a vengeful one. I mean, it makes me feel better, but it's not as sort of happy as that. I need things to make me feel better when we lose. And normally what happens is I just give it a couple of days and then I start thinking about things in a more sane light. But I didn't need a couple of days this time. I just needed to see a video of Jake Bidwell kicking somebody's phone as far as he possibly could, and then Rodoni robbing it. And I was just like, yeah, I feel better now. They just let your anger out like vicariously through them. And it was just like the moment where he became all of us. We just want to, this is the pettiest thing I can possibly do in this moment. I'm going to kick this phone. And he did.
Now then, we've talked about this a million times. People don't like this on the internet, but context is everything, right? So when you say externally from context, Jake, a member of staff, has knocked a Sunderland phone out of his hand. Jake Bidwell has kicked it as hard as he could towards the side, and then Jack Rodoni, in really the most cold-blooded version of events, like smashed it to pieces. It doesn't sound good, does it?
It doesn't sound amazing, does it?
Imogen, I'll kick to you. I've never seen anything more justified in my entire life when you saw it happen in real time.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Because I missed, I saw the fan going up, and then I saw Bidwell kicking something away, and I didn't connect the two. I thought it was a flare at first because he kicked it away really strongly. But then Rodoni picked it up and put it in his shorts, and I was like, "That's bold. I don't think I'd do that if it was a flare." So I pretty soon had worked out it wasn't. But I loved every moment of it, and I hope he didn't get it back.
Well,
broken or otherwise.
It would be pointless if he got it back, because I've seen.
Don't care. I just don't. I don't know.
I've seen another angle of it where it's not totally clear, but you can see Rodoni throw the phone to the ground, and that what you can see is like a load of Cov ball boy kids look at it and piss themselves at what is very clearly like a twisted shard of previous. It's not a phone at that point, and that you can see the fan going around and being like, "You can't do that," and there's this air of, "I think we can because of what you did." Yeah. It is only very, very, very fair.
Cold, swift justice, I think.
Well, just don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Like it's all well and good. It's all very good, well and good. Very hubristically running over with your phone in your hand, presumably drunk, and being like, but what if someone goes, but what if we go,
Yeah. Beat that. Oh, I needed it. I definitely needed it.
Imogen, moment of the week, if assuming it's not that.
No, it wasn't that. Do you know what? I really loved Josh Eccles' cameo. I thought he came on with no fear at all. And I think he's had a bit of a rough season since Lampard came in. I don't know if he's just been unlucky or if he's not favoured or whatever it is. But, we haven't seen him that much. And he just absolutely bossed it. He came on and he was not afraid. And I think, although there are a lot of positives to take out of Tuesday's game, there are a few bits that I will grumble about shortly. But he really took it by the scruff of the neck, and I was really disappointed for him that he got injured. And I hope it's not. I don't know if we've heard anything. I hope it's not serious. But he looked like a baller, Cov kid, didn't he? And of course, let us not forget Joey's close personal friend, almost a brother.
Well, I would say relative. I mean, he is purportedly friends with my cousin, which basically makes him my brother, or like half cousin or whatever that would be.
I think in Cov that's how it works. Yeah.
Oh, in Cov, or because I'm not from Cov, I just support the club. I'm too posh to be from Cov.
To be incestuous, God, get out of it.
I couldn't agree more, and was delighted by not just his redemption arc in that game, but also let's call a spade a spade. I think I said a month ago that I would tell Jay Da Silva to just go and chill out for a month while he finds another club because there's no place for him. And I would argue since then, he might be our best player. So is it possible that Big Bad JC got that a bit wrong?
No, I think you inspired him. That was reverse psychology, no?
I've got a feeling he didn't care. The Eccles, who likewise has sort of become a sort of marginalised figure, like you say, I thought he was wonderful. I do wonder whether that game and I felt really sorry for everybody on the pitch by the time the Eccles came on, because didn't they look tired? after a really long season and those two incredibly stressful games. The games are stressful, I suppose, at the best of times anyway, but when they're a playoff semi-final and that one team has got the stress of having to break down a team that are only trying to defend, one team has got the stress of only trying to defend, they just, especially in extra time, Sunderland had quite a lot of things that would have bordered on chances that didn't really sort of amount to much, but largely because they just looked like they hadn't got it in them to do anything more than just sort of kick it forwards. You were like, this is hard to watch. Like, everybody's out on their feet. And Eccles' natural tenacity, plus the fact that he hadn't played, made him look like a fucking genius. Because he just hadn't got he'd got the energy in his legs that nobody else had got. But that's his game, isn't it? When he's good, that's why he's good. And it was a really inspired thing to do, was to bring him on. More on why didn't we have a little bit more of that a little bit sooner to? But yeah, I thought he was absolutely terrific. And like I said, I thought Jay Da Silva was terrific. Some final moments of the week that I'll throw in to round things off before we sort of lament / analyse / celebrate the season and those two particular games. I want to go ever so slightly off tangent to the last podcast that we did, and something to let people in behind the curtain, which is after the first leg, I was blessed with seeing a gentleman that I adore, but that I very rarely see in person, in Dom, in Tesco. Now, I initiated our meeting because I saw him first by walking up behind him and saying to him, "Look who it is," like this, right? Yeah. Now, I found, Dom, that your response was tepid, I would say. Now then, but I don't know, for those of you that have listened to last week's episode, you started off by saying that you had been accosted by Middlesbrough fans. And I do wonder in retrospect whether I might have had a more sensitive version of opening events. Now, it's entirely possible that you just didn't want to see me. But for a guy that might have already been ever so slightly on edge, having been accosted for his bike by Middlesbrough fans, where there's someone in Tesco, in Cov, where you should have been safe, going, "Look who it is," without you being able to see who it is. I can see how that might have put you on edge with my big fucking stupid voice or whatever. What was double funny about it is that at one point, my lad who I took to the game climbed on my back. And then when I looked round, you'd basically just walked off. You didn't even say goodbye. But it was just a lovely, a very on-brand, lovely interaction for the pair of us. I thought in terms of other moments of the week, like I say, Jay Da Silva's performance again, I thought was absolutely terrific. I thought that the atmosphere of the first leg, as you say, was absolutely glorious. I thought it was summed up by the fact that I remember very specifically an FA Cup third or fourth round tie against Crystal Palace at home just over 10 years ago that we won 2-1. Does anyone else have any recollection of this at all?
Don't think so. No, 10 years ago.
So we went 2-0 up in that game. and then we conceded reasonably late on. And when we walked out, everyone was talking about how it was typical Cov to not be able to see the game out like more comfortably in a game that we dominated, right? And the sort of, despite the fact that we beat a team that was nominally better than us, albeit in the same league, had been met with this kind of like anxious fury about the fact that we'd conceded late on, that you just think, one, it's not typical Cov. We've done this typical Cov conversation a lot for anyone that's listened to this podcast for a long, long time, right? But I remember walking out of there and being like, will we ever be happy? Are there ever any circumstances that we'll ever just be happy about anything? And the flip side of that is that in the fucking 89th minute or whatever, is in that massive game, is Van Ewijk plays what I'm calling the Roland Nielsen pass. Like the first mistake he's ever really meaningfully made since he's been here for 2 years. And the reaction to it isn't kind of despondency, it's people staying behind after the game to sing his name as loud as they could do to make sure that he knew that it's fine. It's not, this is someone that was so obvious, like it was heartbreaking seeing how sad he was in that moment. His head dropped straight away and Radoni had to pick it up for him. And I just thought, to your point, Dom, about the sort of the way that the club has changed and the way that support has changed, I just thought it was fantastic to hear so many people stay behind and just sing, oh, that terrible song, oh, Milan. But you just think this is different to how it's been. Even in the context of a sort of reasonably good last 10 years, we've moved. It's sometimes you remember how far we've moved. It's 10 years ago since people are trying to accost Tim Fisher in the car park. He has to take his big dog to games in case someone batters him. People are throwing chairs at him in a pub at Brentford or whatever it was. This is some level of movement. A slightly sadder moment of the week, but that again I think is worth saying is, so obviously I went with Paul. Previously in this parish, we had to eject him because of his controversial views, but we went with his daughter Mary, and in the first leg she had tried to get Sakamoto's signature after the game, but that somebody came out and said the players have been instructed to ignore the fans, so please don't take it personally. We've asked them to just walk to the coach and to not sign autographs or anything, so to deal with it. And they had, even still, which is remarkable, attracted Sakamoto's attention and showed him they've got a Osaka shirt, the club that he was at when he came through. And a friend of ours had been to Japan recently and got some Japanese sweets and tried to tempt him like a dog, basically, even though he's a human man. And he sort of like begrudgingly was willing to acknowledge, like they said, will you do it after the Sunderland away game? And he said yes, like nodded and just walked off because he had been told that he couldn't do it. So we stayed behind on Tuesday to get his autograph. And in one of the worst things I've ever seen, I'm not exaggerating here, I'm complicit in this and I'm not sure how I feel about it. We called him over when he walked out and he was in floods of tears. Oh, and I'm talking about like a full 30 to 45 minutes after the game, he was inconsolably upset. And he wasn't the only one that we saw outside the stadium a lot, as in like they've put the barriers up to go to the coach. Yeah. And what an unbelievable gentleman that he was gracious enough to sort of go through that emotional pain to do the nice thing and sign the shirt and everything and whatever else. What a prick Paul is to make a man have to go through that pain barrier to do it. But he did it, happily or whatever. But he was the totemistic version of it, but because he was so upset. But the players were, to a man, upset and angry in a sort of bizarrely, like you don't want to see it, but in a way that's very encouraging. These are players that are part of the club, like in a way that you really want them to be. You don't want them to be upset, and you don't want them to be like, because you don't want another human being to go through that. But in terms of when we think about how we feel about the club, you worry sometimes that you sign mercenaries. These are not. These are guys that, for their own personal gain, or because of their friends, or because of their attachment to the club, they weren't like beyond mortified. And the shame about it is that they played so well, and that nobody would level anything at any of them apart from some twats against Wright. They deserve to. They can walk out with their heads held high, and everything's positive for next season, right?
Yeah, you just hope that response, it is good, obviously bad, but it's good because you think that would foster something, in terms of that resilience, that defiance. I mean, I feel like bloody Kitching and Collins, last minute of playoffs 2 years in a row. Well, not 2 years in a row. Back for Barnsley, they had the same thing happen to them then. It's just like these things, these moments which prevent you from reaching that thing you want to reach. And I kind of do want to see that response. Not because, gratuitously want to see people upset, but because of what it represents as like a closeness to as close as possible to what we feel. We're that frustrated, but proud and angry, and all the stuff that you're supposed to feel after you lose a match where you don't think you should lose. You don't want them walking out not really sensing anything. The fact that you can sense what you sense, which was real sort of, I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what the mood was, but if you've got Sakamoto crying, and I'm guessing you've got some, was it so anger? Was it just what was it? What else could you give us from that sort of meeting?
So we saw almost, I would say we watched 60% of the players file out, and the general atmosphere was like just gutted, just really, really, really gutted. So Victor Torp very kindly signed Mary's programme. And even though he hadn't played, by the way, he looked gorgeous. He'd got the black tracksuit on, and just, for a guy that, you look at and you go, you're doing all right. You see him in real life and you think, oh, you're a bit of all right, actually. He was just, they just all looked like it was, it's hard to interpret. You place your own opinions on these people, I suppose, don't you? So you can't say it without being tinged by that. But it's one thing that was really clear was they felt it. They really, really, really felt it. And that could be about personal gain. That could be about the fact that if they'd have got to Wembley and they'd have got promoted, they might have got a big wage uplift or whatever. It might just be as simple as that. I don't think that's what it came across as to me at the very least. Did
you see Lampard's interview, the Sky one? The wobbly lip, that was stark, especially coming straight after. So you wouldn't have seen it just as it happened, but obviously I watched on TV and feeling the way I felt, and then having to see him come out and talk through it and just say the words he had to say. And you could just see, I've never seen him that sort of close to tears or that emotional before. And it was just, you can see over the last few weeks, he's been kind of sort of not guarded because he still said what he meant, but he's kind of been very kind of reserved and just getting on with the job and doing his job and not really indulging anything. And this was the first moment you could see a kind of a break in that facade. And it was so hard to watch, but I don't think I've ever seen a manager of ours look that close to sort of tears. It's horrible.
Imogen, did you see the Lampard interview? Have you got a view on Lampard?
Oh yeah, I've got a view. I don't think it would be terribly popular. I did see. Yeah, I thought you might have been. I did see the interview, not until sometime afterwards, obviously, because we were there.
Is your voice fucked because of shouting at Lampard's interview?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was fine on Tuesday night. I didn't really say anything, but yeah, look, I actually think it was one of his best interviews since he's been here. I think he spoke very warmly about the players and rightly acknowledged that they'd worked very hard. Yeah, look, I mean, he's not my guy. I haven't been as enamored with him as a lot of other people have been. I respect what he's done in terms of turning the performances into results since he's arrived.
Why are you beating around the bush? This is the end of the season. You can say what the fuck you like.
Well, he might not be here next season, so that's. I don't need to go into detail on my thoughts and feelings on him. But I'm sure he felt it. I'm sure he felt it very keenly. I hope he did. I hope they all did. Because that's what we pay for.
He might
that's
not
why
be
we
here.
go. Sorry?
He might not be here.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, he may not be. But who knows? You can't predict these things in football. I imagine that he will be come August. He might not be here come the end of the season, but it's a long old time away. I would hope that he is here. I don't think he's proved anything yet.
I think that's fair, right? I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent because, as I like to do, I used to work with a woman called Sarah, and for some reason, just intuitively, just didn't trust her. And I'll tell you for why. It's because she seemed like the sort of person that is what I'd call a LinkedIn person.
Oh dear.
And over time of working with her, I realised that she was a LinkedIn person. She's bad, obviously, but also she was fine. She was a LinkedIn person, but it's also okay to be a LinkedIn person if you're all right. Okay. And I think that even within the context of saying about Lampard having tears in his eyes, is I paused. We were in the back of the car waiting to get out of the car park on the 3rd floor that took us fucking ages, and we got a car park ticket, and like everything that could have gone wrong that night went wrong for us. But I played it on my phone to the people in the car because we've got nothing better to do because we were sick of talking to each other because of how long we've been in the car with each other. And I had to pause it at one point and say, does this not sound like not only is he giving an emotive version of how he feels, but it does also feel like he's in a job interview talking about how well he's done. so he was like, it's just an incredible, oh God, it's a real roller coaster. When I took over, we were in 17th and then...
Which he never mentions. You never hear him say that in any of his interviews, would you? Where were we when he took over? I can't recall. And it was him personally, not a team. It was him personally that did it.
But this is the thing, right? So this is what the reason that I bring up that slightly tangential thing is that he is LinkedIn. He is high performance podcast. It runs through his bones and his blood, right? He knows how a stage manager, a conversation and a thing. But then I don't think that means that he doesn't feel. He feels the same way as we do. He just articulates it in a different way.
I don't know. He doesn't, Joey. He doesn't feel the same way as we do. No, he doesn't. He might feel like that about football, but he doesn't feel like that about our club. And that's fine. There's no reason for him to feel like that. He's only been there half a season.
But I'm not saying about our club. I'm saying the way that he feels more generally.
What do you mean? Like he's a human and he feels?
Yeah, but a lot of people don't. What I mean is, I think that these LinkedIn people don't feel like the kind of these sorts of people. I just think if you've never had to battle through anything, which to be fair, I mean, fair play to Lampard, but he's not had a lot of, he's not struggled that much. But I think he does care about the players. I think he does care about the club. Does he care about it as much as we do? No, of course. But then why the fuck would he? Like he'd have no reason to. It'd be insane for him to even try and pretend that. But you could imagine also that in that post-match he might be either hurt for himself or whatever. But I don't think he is hurt for himself. I think he's hurt for the club, and I think that, like I say, there's bits of it where he's like, God. We've just got to remember how brilliant we've done or whatever. I don't think that makes him a bad guy. I just think that it's just part of his DNA. But I also think that that's what makes him quite a good modern football manager. I don't think it's what we want. We're miserable, puristy, elitist, fucking liberal intelligentsia, right? Let's call it as it is. We don't want a big Tory stage managed fucking LinkedIn guy as our manager. But if that's what football is now, let's face it, it is. I think he's a huge part of the reason that there's 30,000 people very positive around it. I think he is a huge part of it. And if we really care about the club in the way that we say we do, I think we probably accept that I said this last week. I think Robins does the same job by the end of the season because I think it's a statistical regression to the mean. But I wonder whether Lampard probably is our future in a way that Robins maybe isn't because of all of the stuff that sits around it and what happens to the fan base and whatever else. And I thought that interview was telling because I think he really cares. Not in the way that, a 2,000 pointer like you, Imogen, cares, but he cares more than you might imagine he'd care.
Yeah, this isn't a comparison with Robins. There obviously isn't one.
That's my next question.
No. It's not that. And like there are a lot of positives to Lampard, and I will come on to talk about the progression that certain players have shown under him that I don't think Robins would have got out of them. It's not that. It's more that this just. It just all feels a bit like built on sand, hero worship, and he will walk out and he's going to break all your hearts. And I just want you to be prepared because I don't want you to suffer the way that I did in November. I need you to be more.
Yeah, but the good thing is that anyone that thinks that Frank Lampard wouldn't leave us to go to Southampton in November when they're top of the table deserves to be hurt because they're stupid. They're stupid fucking idiots, and it's going to be fantastic when he does because they're going to be like, I don't know why he's done it, and they'll be like, oh, you're going to get hurt all the time because you don't understand how life works. He will. I'm looking at Neil specifically now. You look as if you think that he wouldn't just fuck off at the first opportunity.
No, I don't give a monkeys. It's like the players. I don't care that Callum Hare leaves. I don't care if people leave. Like, it's fine. It's a job in my mind. I think there's, that sort of stuff doesn't bother me really. I don't think this way really. Like, I have to have a reason to like, not dislike him, but to have a problem with him. Like, and my allegiance to Mark is unwavering. Like, I still believe he shouldn't have been sacked, and I still believe it was harsh. But then ultimately that has happened, so I have to then move to a place where there's no point me worrying about that. That's happened. I'll have to then deal with the reality of what's going on right now. So this new guy in, and I'm with you. I don't think he's done anything different really in sense of performances that Robins couldn't have done. But we have just got to the playoffs, and he looked like he's got a pretty decent bond with his players, and he did look genuinely upset. And I was just it was just interesting and useful for me to see that really, because it had been a different version. Like you say, it had been the LinkedIn version of him where it just felt something kind of not holding him back, but it was just being very, very sort of cautious. And for this moment, he didn't seem quite as cautious. Obviously layered with his whole, the language was still the same old language, but it was a bit unguarded, which I liked. I think in that moment, in the same way that you see the players reacting a certain way, sometimes you just need to see a slightly different side to a person, and it was good for me to see that really.
But I think, and I'll try and say this quickly because I want to ask Imogen something. I don't think what we see, and this is what I quite respect, is I think people that portray LinkedIn are bad. And what I'm coming to realize with Frank is Frank isn't portraying LinkedIn. Frank is LinkedIn. He's not like, I don't think he's stage managing. I think he is just that guy. Like it's in him.
I think most people are. I think most people in the office are acting. They're doing something, and it might not be the version of LinkedIn you think it is, but most people are portraying something, a persona, aren't they?
No, but what I mean is that I don't think he's portraying a persona. I think his persona is LinkedIn. I don't think he's. Okay. I think he's real. This is why when he's got tears in his eyes and he's like selling himself or whatever, that I think he's real. My worry was that he's, like I say, this is why I use the example of that person that I work with. Is my worry was that she was inauthentic. And then what I realized is that she was authentic, and I just don't like what she is. But that I'll take authentic. That's all I really want. You can't expect to like everyone, but I don't like inauthentic. But if you're just authentic and that's just you, that's gorgeous, isn't it? And I think that's what Frank is. So the tears in his eyes whilst selling himself, I don't think is artifice. I think that's just what he's like. And then I go, well, You're much more all right than I thought you were, I would say. Imogen, you mentioned about him improving players, in your opinion. I'd be interested to know who you think is improved.
Yeah, I was thinking about this quite a lot, particularly the first leg. Jada Silva's just explosion into the premier player on the pitch. I thought he looked fantastic. But I think, and it is difficult because it may not be Lampard specifically, but it feels like it is. Certainly with Rodoni, the way that he's talked about the influence that Lampard has had on him, it seems fairly obvious that playing for someone that you've had on your bedroom wall as a kid is going to improve your game. And
not even that. It would be Paul level churlish to say that Lampard hasn't improved his game when the pair of them have said they basically have been going on illicit dates after training.
I mean, of course, yeah.
to work
He's
together.
essentially his son. Yeah, lovely. And Rodoni was very quiet in the last game, but I think that was due to very effective marking by Sunderland in the second leg. But generally, he has looked immense. For I don't know, half, 3/4 of the season. Ephraim Mason-Clark.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Lovely. Do you know what? I only realised yesterday that he scored. I didn't know who it scored. They were so far away. I was just like, oh, it's gone in. Fantastic.
I had to ask Paul who it was that scored.
I didn't even bother asking. I just thought, that's a goal. Fantastic.
The Valley of the Tall people in front of me, all I saw was a leg stick out and sort of knocked it in, enjoyed it, and then afterwards I was like, I've just realised that I actually don't know who scored that, and so I had to check. Yeah.
But having watched it back, took it well, and probably should have been able to take the chance that Wright missed at the end because he was in a better position.
Do you not think that he was... this is a Clive level question, so I'm going to rephrase it. How did you think Ephraim Mason-Clark did in that game, particularly, generally speaking?
I think he had a similar game actually to, and I'd be interested to see what Dom and Neil thought about this from watching it on TV, getting a different perspective, probably a much better perspective than we got from up where we were. It felt like everyone was trying hard without much output. And there were large spells of possession, and we certainly looked the more likely to score, but Sunderland didn't look likely to score at all. So it felt like they were doing what they needed to do to control us. I thought Mason-Clark made some really good runs and was able to cut in quite a few times quite nicely. But I didn't think that he was... I don't know. I feel really conflicted about it. I don't know whether my view of that game is just tainted by what happened at the death, but it felt like we could have done a bit more. I don't know. Maybe that's an overly negative viewpoint. What do you think, Dominic?
Counter.
Yeah. So, well, I'll talk about how I experienced the game, which I imagine would have been quite different to watching it in person in front of 49,000 fans, because after about 20 minutes, I just got so annoyed with the Sky commentary that I stuck it on mute. It was just...
Why?
It was just the most gushing praise of Sunderland. I actually I know a specific moment I muted it. It was when Luke 09 fouled Hadji Wright, and then the commentator was like, oh, there's a bit of 6 of one, half dozen the other. And the guy's like, yeah, but actually Luke 09 is a really nice guy. And I was like, don't, come on, this is... You've got pretty much like 2 Sunderland guys in the studio. And then just the commentary track throughout the game is just like, oh, Sunderland are amazing. This is the best atmosphere ever. You'll never believe it.
Commentary are doing nothing. They're being horrid.
Yeah, it was just the most ridiculous. So I spent the majority of the game just watching it on mute, which was just kind of, just a strange experience trying to watch it. Well, ended up watching it with no sort of voice trying to influence.
I find that liberating, because I do. I always like not being influenced at all. It was quite fun.
Yeah, that was interesting. And then also just like as the second half wore on and then into extra time, I think that I just was amazing was just the cutaways to the increasingly tense Sunderland crowd, which looked like a sort of like Bruegel painting, just this like Dutch realism, just the details in the faces as they're going increasingly redder and more sullen and sunken in the anxiety they're feeling. So, but I think, yeah, overall in terms of our performance, it was a strange one where it felt like we had control of the game, but it never really felt like we truly believed we were gonna
That is exactly
get it over the line. Where
yeah. And that's what I meant about Eccles coming on and injecting a little bit of bravery. It felt like he took it by the scruff of the neck and was like, we can absolutely do this. Why is everyone pissing about? Can we just let this? I don't care about how pretty we play. Just get it in the fucking net. And it did. I think that it did pick them up a bit. And the momentum was swinging back and forth. Like first half of the extra time, I thought, we have got this nailed. And then second half, I was like, oh, well, we absolutely haven't. No, this is terrible. But it never felt like they really believed that they could do it, which is a real shame because I think they could.
I think that's an interesting analysis. Why do you feel like that?
Because they didn't. No, because
By the way, that would have been much funnier if he just left that there.
They just seemed a little bit hesitant, a little bit tentative at taking those final steps, and the balls just weren't coming into the box, and they weren't quite commanding enough for me.
Are we getting scarily close into analysis of football here?
I shouldn't have thought so.
Because there is a little bit of this to do, right? Because I on Friday I went down to Cov and stayed in Cov, and there's that interesting thing that people are talking about, which is I went to a pub that I grew up near. And there's a lot more people in there wearing Cov shirts than there were when I grew up, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But on the way back is I was quite dismayed by how people had said that we had, been the better side. Because across the two games, I don't know whether you can say that we were the better side when you play a team that is executing a plan that gives us the ball. And I thought that there was a very clear distinction between the first game and the second game. In the first game, and I know that we scored from, which is going to make me sound like a fucking idiot, but I think that they were on the ropes because they'd scored. I thought that we put in this cavalcade of balls into the box that made Dan Ballard look like a fucking genius that just got nodded away. I thought that I was quite disappointed with how we played in the first game. Dom, you're nodding. I'm going to look to you because it's going to make me look clever. For once, you're going to agree with what I've said.
Yeah, I think some of the key differences between the first and the second leg. I thought the first leg we were just way too content just to have the ball, and we were just moving it far too slowly, and we weren't risking playing it forward quickly. We weren't risking getting crosses into the box. And I think in the second leg, we were much more intentful. I thought first 20, 25 minutes, I think we quite deliberately just played the ball quicker, more often just to stop any chance of Sunderland just getting completely on top of us. I think that went some way to sort of taking some of the sting out of Sunderland being buoyed by the best atmosphere since sliced bread. Kind of thing happening. But yeah, I think another difference between the second and the first leg was having F1 Mason Clark out on the left, because it gave us a threat on both flanks. If there was one area of positivity in the first leg, it was that Sakamoto and Van Eyck were just so good at isolating Sunderland's left back and running at them, and we didn't quite do enough to take advantage of that, although the goal comes from a Van Eyck cross down that side.
That's what's strange about the first leg, is that weirdly everything that I had big problems with in the first leg was where our goal came from. And so you sound like a dickhead by being like, I thought these were problems. You go, yeah, we scored from that. I'd be like, yeah, but that's different though. That's a different.
That's chance.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, we were just much better at actually like penning them back, and we're able to threaten down both sides. And the one missing ingredient, which everyone has talked about, I think, was at centre forward, where I think just like a bit more presence, and we might have been able to, we probably would have been able to win that. And then also possibly also just like the timing of the goal, where I think if Rudoni takes one of those first half chances, that gives us a whole second half to go at Sunderland, who just were just waiting for opportunities on the break, and we've just done a really good job of preventing them. I think that's actually something I think that's really improved over the past month or so, is our ability to defend those counterattacks. Sunderland's first goal in the first leg is we've all piled forward for a set piece, and then it's a really good pass to send Isidore through. Maybe Wilson could do better the shot, but I think that's been a bit.
And maybe Thomas takes one step forward in a way that he probably regrets now. But I think you're nitpicking over that.
Yeah,
that's the sort of thing that's why you get caught on the break, right? It's not a huge mistake. It's just, and nor is Wilson's. They both might look at that and do things differently. But what a wonderful world you could live in, where you could relive all of your actions and do things ever so slightly differently, right?
Yeah, we have stopped being that colander that we were against like Leeds and I suppose less so against Burnley, but like that Ipswich FA Cup game as well. And there was a period in about March, February where teams were just getting in behind us for fun, and we've really improved that like discipline, that ability to squeeze the ball. But yeah, we were just missing that sense of belief that we could do it. I think that was missing part. I think probably we reflect that just the first leg we were far too passive in our approach. We were a bit too happy to keep the ball, and that was kind of where it began to get away from us. And then from conceding that first goal, we were kind of always behind the 8 ball, really trying to fight the gravity that I felt the tie was being pulled towards. But I think there's a lot of encouragement taken from the second leg, albeit I suppose we have to caveat it a bit in that we're playing the Sunderland side who knew they only needed to defend, and it was quite a unique situation. But I think we saw some good progress for where this team's at in terms of like being able to manage away trips, which had started to get away from us, defending counterattacks, having possession and threatening with it. So it's a lot of encouragement to take from that. But if only the tie was 45 minutes longer.
I mean, and as well, for those of us that were there for the full whack, it did not feel long anyway. I'm not sure what needed. Before I pass to Neil to talk about his view of the first half or the first leg or whatever, is Jesus Christ, this is where oh, fuck's sake.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, but I've got a very bad memory sometimes. There was a very specific point that I'd got a question over, and then I got entranced in what Don was saying. I mean, you're gonna have to cut this out because you're gonna sound like a fucking face if you don't cut it out. The fuck was I gonna ask?
Shut down.
Gone. It's completely gone.
You're going to ask Neil about the first half?
Yeah, before that.
No, there's like a million things that could be, but we'll have to. It doesn't matter. I thought my ender, for example, was wonderful. Like in terms of a counter. Anyway, we're gonna go too far off piste. Neil, in terms of your opinion of the first leg, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think my sentiment's probably different. I don't know how much sort of emotional energy I have to fight it too hard, but I'll give it a go in terms of just some of the bits that I thought. I thought everything is kind of underlined by actually how well Sunderland defended. I think that in its own right makes a lot of what we did, or explains a lot of what we did, also made a lot of what we did very, very difficult to break down. I think it was too good, annoyingly good, in a way that I wish that we could sometimes be that robust. But I guess if you're going to try and defend that way and with that mindset, you're only looking to do one thing, which is to be deep and just fight for absolutely everything. So I understood it, and it made sense. And in many regards, I thought we did everything I wanted us to do, which was just to be relentless. Like, if somebody is going to be that deep, it's going to be very, very hard to break them down. So the only way you're going to do that is either through mad ingenuity or just being relentless and keep working them until a mistake happens, because we see what happens with us. Mistakes happen. So I think that was, from that perspective, I thought we did a good job at just toiling away, trying to pick apart some stuff. I think there were areas where across both legs, really, I thought our set piece relentlessness was just weird. By the end of it, it was just like, I'm all for trying, because people say, oh, you try the same stuff, what's that saying? Trying the same stuff is the definition of insanity. I don't actually think that's true. I think actually, if you keep trying the same stuff in football, eventually you might score.
But also famously, you're insane. And also, but also right, because everything that I would complain about, like I say, is how we got our goal. So you're mad and right.
I'll take both of those. I openly accept I'm right, but I think like the thing about just doing the same stuff over and over, in some regard, makes a lot of sense in terms of just how you wear teams down, because they're all humans, and eventually stuff is they're fallible, they'll make a mistake, they won't look. We saw Van Avaak, perfect player in many regards, he does so much good stuff, and then he has this one moment where he loses his mind, and that all comes simply from him being a human being. And so I like the idea of us just continually doing what I deem to be the right things. I think the problem is where the right things are so easily mopped up. And if the right thing is just dropping the ball onto Ballard's head from the same throw-in or from the same corner and the same type of corner over and over again, I think eventually you have to get a little bit more creative about that and think, right, okay, they might be expecting that because we've done it 17 times already. Maybe while they're expecting it, we'll do something slightly different. We'll go short on things. So I thought that some sort of creativity there wouldn't have gone amiss. But broadly, I thought I was happy with the way that we played that first game. I thought, this is how we play now. We want control of the ball. Us having control of the ball means we're in control of the match to some degree, in the sense that we can dictate where we want it to go. It was just hard. I just thought they defended too well. It was very hard to break them down. And for us to get a goal when they're reeling was the perfect time to do it, because it was the only time really they opened up and we were able to take advantage of it. Because if we'd not scored then, it would have just continued to be really hard, and we probably would have lost it 1-0 and wouldn't have had maybe the same sort of thought that it was because scoring a goal just makes the game feel better, I think. So yeah, that first game I was okay with. I thought we I won't say better team, because there's too many ways of you can determine what a better team was, but I think
for the listener, Neil can see my grimacing face all the entire time. So to describe us as the better team, he can see that I'm like a tank ready to roll over his fucking country. You're right. We had the possession. We had the everything. Were we the better team?
Well, it's like you say, it's all about definition, is it? If a team only wants to, across two legs, defend, then that's their prerogative. And all good,
and they go through because it's a meaningful tactic that works, and
when we handed them a goal and stuff like that, but that's football, and I'm going to sound like Lampard there. I'm not bitter, but they got through. Well done. But it's just like definition of what I believe a superior team is in terms of how they play. And like, if let's say they play pound for pound how they want to play, and we play how we want to play, I still think we give them as much of a close contest as possible. It was just tactics in the end, wasn't it?
No, I think it's much simpler than that. I think if they had have played the way that they really would have liked to, sort of like ethos-wise, Reggie Lebrie's fucking Cruyff ball or whatever the fuck version of that is, he has not been, and I'm going to take Dom's steer on this because you know better than me, but Sunderland's like raison d'etre hasn't been Simeone level of kind of like attritional fucking 1-0 wins, has it? Well, that's not what they do per se. What they realised was, I think, and I'm looking at Dom, you cut me off now before I make it. What I think they realised was they watched our last 10 games and they went, right, here's what happens. If we're Middlesbrough and we need to go to the CBS to win a game, we're going to get the shit beat out of us because we haven't got the confidence or the ability at the minute to go and take that game to them in a way that they won't pick us off. But if we just sit back, they will probably make a mistake. And we did. So
it was good. I'm not knocking it.
There's loads of ways to do football. I know this is a big bugbear of mine. And I just thought that for a team that's been shit for about 3 months, I think you've got to hand them a huge amount of credit and especially the manager, for going, we've got to transcend that to make this work. And they did it exactly. But I also don't think that is implicitly a criticism of us. I thought we did the best version of that. Bear in mind how fucked up we looked against Luton and Plymouth. Sunderland are arguably worse at the minute and sat deeper back than either of those two teams did. And we looked more threatening than we did against both those teams. It's just, I know we talked about this last time, Neil, but it's your Janice thing that you sent. It's not always your time.
Yeah, and that's acceptable. So you can accept all that. And I think that's why I've been able to kind of accept this and just sit back and say, actually, yeah, I'm all good with the fact that we've made the playoffs two out of 3 years and we've made Wembley and all that sort of stuff, because that bit is good. You know, why wouldn't you want that? The alternative is not doing that at all. You know, so I'm always going to take that sort of stuff. And you have to take the hits. Nobody's going to relentlessly win all the time. And in that game, while you can pick apart the idea, where the hell did we concede a goal with the last midriff of the game or knee or whatever hell it came off? Like, how that's always going to infuriate you. But, you know, in terms of the things that I value, like, we had the experience. I thought we played well. You know, looked like they really cared. We got some meaningful goals in all these things which I'm looking at. And I see a real future for what we're going to do with it as a club. So I like to look at that. And then obviously the other stuff just is always lingering, the way I feel and how sad I am about it and all that stuff. I don't know how I've got onto this big existential point when we're talking about Sunderland defending, but we've got here and I'm not going to finish it because you want to say something. So there we go.
No, I want you to finish it, but that you've said the word existential and that it was already in my head because I'm going to make some grand Disney level point that everyone has already thought of, but I'm going to say like it's some sort of huge revelation. Go on, Neil, here.
No, I don't, because you'll forget it again. So say it right at the top.
To let the listener in behind the curtain is before, and I'm going to cut it out because I'm
leave it in. I really enjoyed it.
You know what? Actually, as one, it's going to save me some editing time. And now that we've done this, and it's a thing, is that that's that.
Yeah.
Because as well, I've remembered what it is. Yeah, I had a moment that you now heard probably 15 minutes ago, which is just a total brain fart of I couldn't remember where I was going. Right, so have we seen the film Inside Out?
You love that film, don't you? I've not seen it, but I'm aware because you talk about it so much.
No, but Joey, I've never seen anything that you talk about, so it makes no difference to me.
I think of you all, so obviously I'm like God tier of whatever. Yous are all normies. I thought that you might have seen a Disney film at least. None of yous have got kids, have you? I suppose is the crucial thing. But then saying that, I went to the cinema on my own to see Inside Out because I like Disney stuff. I went to, not only that, I went to see Inside Out on my own in a tracksuit, which you'd have thought they'd have, like the police would have been there.
Don't let this guy in.
When you bought a ticket, they'd have just been like, take this guy away. But I think they do lots of very interesting things. Anyway, it's a roundabout way of saying that life is about light and shade, right? So we've talked a million times about, I've talked a million times and yous have blanked me out, where I've talked about that game in 2008 that I went to, where Old Trafford, where Man United were 1-0 down against Blackburn. And then I watched one of the best 45 minutes of football I've ever seen. You just couldn't get your head round how wonderful it was. And they won 4-1. and that people booed at half time, and then they were walking out before the final whistle. And even the mates that I were with were just like, there's no way we should have been 1-0 down against these, right? Is that it, like, success breeds this kind of like disgusting, like, like expectation. And so I was thinking about this earlier.
Luton.
So Man City have been shit all season, but they'll probably win the FA Cup. But if you were a Man City fan now, you don't really enjoy that FA Cup win, right? So how many FA Cups is this that they've won in a row? Like, not in a row, obviously, but there must have been since the fucking, like, the money. This is presumably like, yeah. And I went to the League Cup final a few years ago because two of my best mates, one is an Aston Villa fan and one is a Man City fan. And we went together. And it was like the emergence of Phil Foden, and that they like rotated and they played like an 18, 19-year-old Phil Foden who was man of the match, and that their rotated squad just smashed Aston Villa to bits. I think it was 2-1, but it was fucking ridiculous. So we've had what you might describe as relative success. So we shouldn't have been in League Two, but we got promoted out of League Two. And we've got promoted as champions, admittedly in COVID, out of League One. But that now we're on the verge of thinking that, like, losing against Man United in the FA Cup semi-final, not getting promoted through the playoffs in the Championship these last 2 times, people are talking about it as pain. It's not pain. It's not pain.
It's different. It's different in the moment. I want Imogen to talk about this because I know Imogen feels a certain way, and I like the way Imogen feels because you actually don't like it. You don't like losing to Luton in the playoff final, whereas you don't. I guess you don't want us being too happy about the existence because it's quite a painful experience, isn't it?
I mean, Neil, the only time that we've ever met in person, I was sobbing.
You were,
It was undignified, and you look worried for my mental stability. You're like, are you all right?
But I think that's normal, isn't it?
Well,
like, to feel that way in the moment.
I mean, no one else was crying quite as hard as me, but I'm sure.
I saw some tears, don't worry.
Yeah, okay, good. But it's interesting that the levels of expectation. So I was waiting at King's Cross for the train. I got my cough top on because I'm representing.
And you're from London, which is better than everyone else. Let's just make sure.
I'm not from London. I happen to live in London. Right? Very different things.
Sorry, Karen, you were at King's Cross in London.
I was at King's Cross in London, where I live. Yes, where I reside. And there was a guy standing next to me with a Sunderland top on, and I knew that he was trying to get some conversation going because he kept like turning around and going, And my mate that I was standing with went out for a fag, and as soon as he'd gone, this guy was like, "So," I was like, "Oh, hello." He's like, "You ready to get battered by us later?" I was like, "Wow, that's a strong opening statement,
Conversation.
Sir." To which I said, "Absolutely yes, and I can't wait to watch you get battered against Sheffield United." Lol, lol, lol. And he said, "You think they won't batter us?" No, we'll win. I was like, oh, okay, sure. I mean, I won't be watching, but I'm sure you'll do well. And he said, I mean, we're better than you. I was like,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I was like, are you flirting, sir? Because it's not going well. And he said, I mean, it's not your fault. We're just a bigger club.
Yes.
Okay. And he was like, do you not think so? I was like, well, I guess I mean, if that's how you define success, how do you feel about your season? And he said, yeah, I mean, we've done well, but there's a lot of expectation. We're meant to be in the Premier League. And I was like, hang on a second, sir. I'm not sure that you are meant to be in the Premier League, seeing as you reside in the Championship. And these things are very mathematically worked out. And he was like, I mean, credit to you for traveling for your team. It's nice.
What?
I was honestly astounded. And I thought,
When you see
So
them again?
I really do think that has been beaten out of our fan base. I don't think there are many people who think that we have a destiny, a God-given right to be in the Premier League. I'd fucking love to be, but I don't think there are. I think there might have been when we first went down, but those days are so long ago that I don't think there are many people that haven't been humbled by our, I was going to say fall from grace, our fall from being in the lower levels of the Premier League. And that is a good thing. And I am pleased that we don't have that level of hubris. But I still think you can't just be like, oh yeah, great, got playoffs, but never mind. If you're there, you've got to go out to win. And that's, I think, why I'm still frustrated about Tuesday night. I never thought we'd get in the playoffs. As I said, I thought our goose was cooked because we fucked about so much. And then the Luton and the Plymouth games were both objectionable. But now we've got there, fucking do something with it. And
but we did everything, didn't we? Like, is there like, I kind of think that there can be both. Like, I think you can do everything you can to try and win, and you can feel bad about winning, and then ultimately be annoyed by all that. But then also just accept the reality that sometimes you can't win. Like, the other team might win, and then try and kind of rationalize it that way. So, like, that's the only way that my mind works, in the sense where I want to have all those feelings. And like, you know me, I refuse to believe that we're never going to make the playoffs. And I've been saying I'm always believing and thinking we should make the playoffs. And I feel worse when we don't make the playoffs than when we lose the final, because all I care about is just having that proper opportunity to do something big. So I think that's all. Just having all of that rounded view of it is kind of the way I see it, where you kind of, I don't go to a match thinking, oh, well, we've just turned up. Beforehand, I just want to win, like, of course. But I think just when you step back afterwards, at least acknowledging the moment and not thinking dramatic thoughts or making sort of long-term decisions based on short-term stuff, in terms of, we haven't spoken about Haji Wright, but everybody then now basically wants to kill Haji Wright. Like, there's a difference between acknowledging his form recently and all that sort of stuff, and then also what your long-term view on what he needs to, what his punishment needs to be. You know, there are two different things. And I just think my overall point is feeling multiple things and kind of addressing it and looking back and thinking, well, wanted to win, but didn't win. That's quite possible. You know, we can still be happy about that, I guess.
Well, I've always thought this about you, Imogen, is that why are you not better at joined up thinking and kind of seeing this from the bigger picture? What's brilliant about a comment like that is that I've pissed Neil and Imogen off, because that's clearly not what Neil meant, and Imogen didn't take it like it, but you can't see it
it's out there now.
Camera.
So, like,
but both of them were like, I just wish we were doing this podcast with literally anybody else. Which I think is fair, is all right. Look, I don't know whether if we keep talking about it in the way that we are, I think we could talk about this for the rest of our lives. And so I wonder whether there are like final things to talk about. Now, I think the final things are going to be lengthy because there are lots of them. But can we sort of drop in sort of final, like, very important things that we need to say? Because we've also got a Dom quiz that I don't care how long it takes for this, to finish this. We're doing the Dom quiz, right? So as an example, I think we're out of the second leg, like in the first half, if it isn't for the Tatsuhiro Sakamoto defensive masterclass. I reckon I counted twice at least, but maybe 3 times where he is the like sweeper, like has intervened defensively in a way that you just think, I don't know why you're here. But then when you see by the end of the game that he looked like he needed to be scraped off the pitch, you're like, well, that's why. Because you, more than anybody else on the pitch, were prepared to die before you lost that game. You were just going to run every blade of grass. Is there anything else across the 2 games that is worth mentioning of that nature?
I mean, Yeah, I still want to talk about Wright, like sensibly. I don't know if we've kind of
Yes, I think that's very worth talking about. Yeah.
just
Without saying he's a shit bastard and he has to die or whatever, it is worth talking about the two performances. Yeah.
Yeah, and mainly just because again, it's everything we spoke about in terms of the way that people are assessing stuff. It's really noticeable with him specifically because he's performed poorly, really poorly, and not at the level that really is expected of somebody who's your record signing over the playoffs game. Like, let's call it what it is, and we can all assess that completely fairly. He'll know it, and there's rumours and chat about the fact that he's been told it. But I think as much as all that's happened, and then in the moment, afterwards, I was absolutely furious with him, just because I was like, we needed you to step up. This is your moment. We weren't playing Sims or Thomas Asante, and we actually kept him on the pitch because we needed him to take a penalty. Or that reason that you said, Joey, at any given moment, he might do something brilliant. And it turns out in any given moment, he didn't do anything brilliant.
He is a goal scorer. There's no two ways about it. His statistics are better than anybody else's. Arguably, his goals per minute is better than Gyökeres's and Godden's.
And he wins a lot of corners.
He is a goal scorer, and he is a very valuable player. As unorthodox as he is, he's brilliant. But, and carry on.
But it's kind of the reverse of that, isn't it? Like, actually, all that stuff I just said, that's your opinion on, view on that. That's fine.
In those two games, it weren't there, was it?
It weren't there. And like, I think you can say these stuff. I think what we've got, though, like, and it's social media, so you can't take it seriously. But there's too much. And I've had to sit back and just rein in my anger post game and just look at it again and like think people saying, "Oh, he's done. That's it." And I'm just like, can you really say that again about a guy who scored 31 goals in 70 games or whatever it is for this club? Like, because he's had a bad portion of form in the same way where, a month ago, Jay De Silva was being sent packing by you, Joey. And now we want him to him to stay. But this is football in a nutshell. This is this game by game approach to these fundamental decisions. And I said it earlier, like people making sort of long-term assessments based on short-term events, and it's really bad at the moment in football. And I think it was just the thing that really wound me up about it was like people can't distinguish between the fact that you can be absolutely furious with what I would say even maybe the effort. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it being effort, but just there was an attitudinal thing in that game where he was just looked limp and just wasn't, his legs were jelly, and but something had happened where he just wasn't given what we expected from him. And I think you can say all that. But I just think the assessment of him as a whole, like people are saying, "Oh, well, like, if we don't see him ever again, I'll be perfectly happy." And it's just like, be careful what you wish for, I think. Like,
so Dom, let me ask you this, right? On a sort of ever so slightly tangential version of what Neil was saying, is I think in the room, we all agree that Jack Rodoni was our player of the season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How influential was Jack Rodoni in them two games?
Anonymous in the second.
Well, I mean, he did score the equaliser, and he was in the position to have some like great chances against Sunderland.
It's not a loaded, it's not a loaded question, by the way, right? So it's not the answer isn't shit or whatever. It's just a question. Yeah. How influential was he overall?
We asking Dom this question because I was just waiting for Dom to. Is that what we're doing?
I think he played as well as you'd expect Rodoni to. Where I think he's a bit of a moments player. He's not like someone who's going to influence a game for 90 minutes. He's there to pop up with something, and he popped up with something in the first leg, and then in the second leg, it just went slightly awry for him. So I was pretty content with Rodoni's impact.
But also, admittedly, for my stupid fucking assessment of it, is I think they realised that he was our main threat.
Yeah, of course. They had someone marking him front and back for every corner. Like they knew that his headers were.
And the reason I'm asking this, and again, it's not in terms of what you're saying, Neil, which I completely agree with, by the way, but also, if you think about 2 years ago, how much influence did Gyökeres have in the playoffs? He didn't score. He in fact, to be fair,
he set up Gus.
But there was it. But in terms of the way that he had compared to the season, is that the playoffs are really hard. Like they're really fucking hard, aren't they? Like, it's not, you can't necessarily expect, unless you're fucking unbelievable. Maybe it's difficult. It's more difficult in a 2-game series where people are defending really hard because you're like, we can't fuck this up. You can't expect to have the same input that you're going to have. It's just tricky, but it also doesn't mean that you're a bad player. And it also doesn't mean that you can't expect more of that person.
Yeah.
And it's tricky to try and work out where that balance is. So I feel really bad for Wright in some ways, because if you look at the goals that he scored against Sunderland, is one, he had Torp on the pitch, and Torp has played at least two of the passes, maybe even the third that led to the penalty. Torp wasn't there. But secondly is that he hadn't got the space that he'd got at the fucking CBS. It just wasn't there. So does that mean that he's shit now? No. Does that mean it's a very different game? Yeah. But also, does it mean that you could expect more of him? Yeah. Football's just very complicated, isn't it?
And I think that's the other thing. Like, you then move that onto the sort of Sim. So Sim didn't have a single minute. He just didn't get onto the pitch. And I think that's probably, it sounds really harsh, his own fault. Like, he's played the way he's played for a lengthy period of time, really. But I have the same disappointment with Sims as I do with Wright, and a lot of it comes down to the attributes that they've got. Like, I don't like Haji Wright being bullied by Luke 9 simply because he's like a foot taller than him. And like, Luke 9's he's a fine player, and he's got all the dark arts, and he knows when to dive and get a free kick when he hasn't been touched and all that stuff, and it's great. But, I think it's okay to expect somebody of Haji Wright's size to give him maybe a harder game, or like that last moment where he should have just blitzed him and his legs went to jelly again. And you're like, how has this happened to you at this time?
I don't think it is.
Do you not think it's easy? Do you not think in another space or another? And I guess, like you say, the playoffs are hard. The arena's hard, so it's difficult. But
we've got to be careful as an entity here, because we've given Andy Turner a bit of a difficult time over this in the past.
Oh, no, I think it's okay to say that Haji Wright is fast. I mean, I don't think the man is quick. I'm not generalising. He is quick.
I don't know how quick he is.
He's very quick. You've seen the video of him coming second to Milan Van Avac. I don't want to ignore the realism of it.
But equally, there's a difference between is he going to run 100 meters, or is he going to come up against is he going to run the 100 meters with a guy trying to chase him? And I think that's mentality rather than speed.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was. It's just one of those things where if you are that athlete and you know how quick you are, it was more the idea that his legs weren't working. I don't even know what that means, but like, there was so many times where he tripped over himself, where it was just the coordination wasn't there. No, I don't understand how that was.
I completely get what you're saying. I just think that there's a huge difference between the idea of either lifting a weight or like running a race or whatever, and then what it takes mentality wise to exercise those physical traits on a pitch. And I think that it's really reductive in terms of Wright to look at. So David Collins, who I love, obviously, and God bless him because he helped me get a ticket to the game. He consistently says, if I was this guy's stature, I'd be like, pulling cars over my head or whatever. I just don't think, whilst he's able to do it physically, he's clearly not able to do it on a pitch. And so I think we should stop. No,
that's too fundamental. We've seen it a million times, him blitzing players. Like, he can do it. But he wasn't doing it, but
I think because you can do it doesn't mean that you'll do it regularly. Sure.
No, that's fair. I get that. Yeah, but like, we're talking about capability. Like, football's all about like capability, what you can do any given, and then the best footballers are the ones who can kind of reenact that more regularly.
But I think this is a thing of like mentality versus physicality. Is that whilst you can do it physically, it still ultimately comes down to mentality above all else, surely.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Like, I that's exactly what I think. I think the mentality, but that's what my question is. Because I do think he has the capability to do way more than what he did. And my question is, like, My question is just why? Like, what was it? Aside from just obviously the obvious stuff where Ballard and 09 were giving it absolutely everything. It was a very hard game for him, and I don't want to dismiss that because I do think I said earlier I thought they defended brilliantly. It was more the moments where he had a bit of room. Those are the ones that frustrated me, like where he had the room, and maybe it was just the relentlessness of them, which then caused him to doubt himself, and maybe that's what the problem was. I don't know. I don't think we're going to have an answer, but I think that's just where my frustration lies, because you expect so much from him, and he wasn't able to kind of deliver it.
So the thing for me is that there's an implicit thing which I think is unfair, and I don't. By the way, this is going to make it. This is going to get into uncomfortable territory, so forgive me. I think that the second that someone is big, there is an assumption that they are aggressive as well. And I just don't think that's the case. Like, I think there's a load of people that are big that just, they happen to be big, and that doesn't, so you can be as strong as you want, but if you don't feel like the sort of guy that would then, or girl, that would want to push into someone or whatever, I don't think it means anything if you're tall or you're strong or you whatever.
But that's the difference between Sims and sorry.
I think that, and I don't think that with Sims and Wright, this is why specifically for me, I was bothered about Andy Turner calling them big guys, is that I think there is I don't think Andy Turner's a racist, obviously, in any way, shape or form, but I think it's journalistic rhetoric that's reductive based on people's size when it's got nothing to do with how they are mentally or how they play. I just think that both of them happen to be big and strong physically, but they play football in a way that it's not part of what they do. But I'm going to ask Dom whether you feel like I'm talking shit as usual, because you are usually the best person to call out.
I mean, yeah, I think the thing with the way Wright played over the 2 days, it wasn't about a lack of aggression that I think would be the criticism of his game. I think it was more just like the lack of focus and a lack of killer instinct to it, lack of like ruthlessness to his game. There was I think he really lacked. I think there's a difference between being like aggressive and trying to be physically powerful, and how Wright played, which was just with just complete self-doubt. It felt like there was the chance in the first leg where in a crowded penalty area it's flown at him, he's trying to take a touch, where I think if he's playing with confidence and ruthlessness, he just takes that first time. And then the header, it just completely gets behind him, and the run in extra time where he just let it get away from it. And I think it was about just just like someone who didn't seem as like focused and as ruthless as you'd want to be in a playoff game. And especially considering that he's your centre forward and he's your record signing, I think that he just didn't really show up in one of the biggest games he's had since signing for us, and that's the real disappointment. And I think that's especially like considering he is the club record signing. I think that's where the disappointment is. When you break records to sign someone, you want them to be there in the big moments, and he wasn't.
And he's done it in the past. So he scored against Wolves. He scored against Man United. He is the guy that has turned up in them situations. Right. The energy of this has sort of dropped considerably below where it deserves to be, I would say. So I think and this is probably going to blow up in my own face, I would say to you, Imogen, how do you feel about next season?
There are lots of positives to take from not just the last 2 games, but I don't know, the past few months. there's been a tightening of the defence, which has been pleasing. If once we get Dovin back, that'll be nice, but that's not going to be till Christmas. So,
what would you do? What
would I do? Can you be more specific?
So you were saying about keeper wise. So
yeah,
would you be
find someone else?
Would you be happy to? Would you get a 6-month loan until Dovin's fit, or would you play Wilson until Dovin's there?
Well, I'm not averse to playing Wilson, but you've got to get someone else in because you're either going to need cover for Wilson, or you're going to need Wilson as cover for whoever you get in. Because Collins has
I'll tell Key and Tyler
no
to fuck
future.
off then, shall I?
You tell who to fuck off?
Key and Tyler.
Yeah. Bye. Collins surely has not got long for this world. So he must leave. For everybody's sake, he must leave.
Yeah.
But however, and I wasn't on for the previous 2 pods, so I haven't had a chance to moan about this. Luton and Plymouth were diabolical performances, and Plymouth I could perhaps forgive because we were tired, because it was nearing the end of the season. And I know that we got someone sent off early at Luton, but my God, we got into the playoffs despite our form, not because of it. And I really think if we'd made a better fist of those 2 games, that the momentum carrying us forward might well have taken us through against Sunderland. And that still sticks in my craw quite a lot. Those kind of performances we have to cut out because the level of support at both games was phenomenal. So they can't be accused of having the fans on their backs. At Luton, they were singing through half time to try and, get the players. I mean, the players weren't there, so I don't know why we were doing it, but we were up for it. We were up for it, and they could have done better. I would also like Lampard to make earlier subs, but I feel like that's an entirely new point that I don't have the energy to go into this evening. So generally, going back to your question, I feel like there are lots of positives and I feel good about next season. And I see no reason why we can't be contending for the playoffs again if we recruit well in the summer and are shrewd about those that we keep. Although there's not actually that many people out of contract, is there? So the retained list isn't going to be, the release list is not going to be that long.
The bigger problem is that if we are successful, is that we're keeping a load of players that we wouldn't want to keep. That's a wonderful position to be in. So we'll worry about that when we get there.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we started this in like a really let's go sort of energy, and that now I'm gonna throw to Dom's quiz, and even the thing that I'd forgotten, I've remembered, is it does feel like we've just finished 18th, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna have to see how next season goes. In the grand scheme of things, this is a good this is a good season. It really is. It's only in 10 years' time when we're back in League One and we're finished in 17th that we're going, Jesus Christ, I wish we'd have realised how good that was.
I think a lot of people know that, though. That's good. I like to think a lot of people realise these are the good times. They don't come back.
I tell you who don't, Imogen don't, because she's biting her lip right now and going, yeah, no, fuck you. That's the face, that's the look in your face.
Don't lie to the listener.
So you're not biting your lip. You're not like this. Fucking this cunt.
I'm just biting my lip to keep myself awake.
Okay. By the way, and again, to let the listener into what you can't see, is look at how inevitably Alan Brazil my face is right now. We're all the same kind of camera situation. My face is very red, and it doesn't really need to be. I think I'll be dead in the next few years.
Joseph! It's not the tone. Right.
What a way to go out, you know?
So, two quizzes to finish us off. The thing that I was trying to remember before that I couldn't do before. Does anyone want to have the only problem with this question is that you know that Dom's going to know the exact answer for it, and that everyone's going to be annoyed that he's ruined the quiz. But it could still be fun. So, Dan Ballard, how many clearances did he make over the 2 games?
17 or something stupid like that.
Neil's gone for 17. Imogen?
12.
12. Dom?
Wasn't it something crazy like 40?
Exactly as I predicted.
Yeah.
Good.
20 in the first game, 20 in the second game, 40 clearances.
Defending. I like it.
But I think without wanting to reopen the sort of surgical discussion that we'd got about the kind of the game as a whole, is it in the first leg, is it a better delivery? In the second leg, is it a better striker? How he's not a great defender. How has he made 40 clearances over 2 games?
Dropping it on his head.
No, I mean, I'd say he is a good defender. He's just very often injured.
But he's not. So I agree with you. He's a good defender, but he's not like he's not. Whoever brought up the Avengers earlier, he's not Thor that they've dropped in defense, like doing superhuman work. You shouldn't be making 40 clearances over 2 games. I think it's not unusual that you make 20 in 1 game under the right circumstances, but 40 over 2 games, then you've got your deliveries wrong. Just fucking work out. Dom, your quiz, please.
Okay, right. Welcome to Dominic's higher or lower.
Oh,
So-
very nice.
I took my end of season spreadsheet and I put it onto the end of all the other spreadsheets. So this is a quiz of since the 2013-14 season, which is when I started doing the blog, combined goals and assists. So, right, I'll start with Victor Gyökeres, and then I'm going to give you Adam Armstrong.
So hang on a second. So this is, do we think the player that you've mentioned has got a higher or lower combined goals and assists than the player you previously mentioned?
Yeah, higher or lower.
See what you did.
Higher
or lower.
We heard.
Yeah,
It's world class.
Yeah.
yeah.
Are we all given our own separate answers or just screaming it out?
Just scream.
I think
Lower.
we have to. So I think we have to work as a team, right? Because there's no way you can just.
Why? We've never done
Well,
so
it's
before.
Adam Armstrong. It's lower than Gyökeres. He was here for 1 season. He scored 20 goals and he probably got...
By the way, I
Yeah.
got the fact that Imogen, you were trying to say it's us. We've never worked as a team, and while you were doing it, Neil talked over you and said, "Yes, lower."
Go on, prove me right.
Quiz, guys.
Go on.
I apologise.
Yep. Right, yep. Adam Armstrong is lower. Okay. So I'm going to put Adam Armstrong up against Maxime Biamu.
So I think I know Adam Armstrong's goals and assists total. I think it's 21. I think he had 1 assist, a bit like Mario Balotelli. I think he had 1 significant assist. I can see from Dom's face that that's not right, but that even still. So I went to Oldham away when he scored his 20th goal, and we were really happy that he'd scored 20 goals. He wasn't a big assist guy. So Maxime Biamu must be higher, surely to God. Because of
He was here for... He did 4 seasons, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he had like 9,955.
Big injury.
Joey, how do you know this? Why are these numbers that you can so easily reel off?
No.
You have children.
No, I don't think. But that all of them are wrong. I'm saying that they are rough estimates of his thing. But that if I know that Armstrong's is 21, I think
Armstrong's a little bit more, but I think you're most likely right. I think it's a close one, but I would go with Biamu as well. I think
before we hit it, Dom, can you confirm or deny that Armstrong is higher than 21 or not?
It's higher than 21 for Armstrong.
Significantly higher, which
That's
I was classed
No,
as a swing 5 or more.
that's all the information you get. Is it higher or lower?
I think 4 seasons.
I'm saying it's higher. It's got to be.
I think it's a close, but I'd go.
1.
Yeah, I'd go higher as well.
Okay, you're locking in.
Whoa, Imogen, stop looking at your phone for a second.
Sorry.
Did Max Biamu in 4 years have more goal involvement?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Maxime Biamu is lower. He got 22, 14 goals, 8 assists against Adam Armstrong's 20 goals and 6 assists.
6 assists.
It's a shame that. Okay.
Right.
By the way, for a lot of quizzes on telly, you don't have one of the panel yawning while they're in it.
I'm sorry.
If we're ever gonna, by the way, it's not unreasonable to think that we could have our first Coventry City on telly quiz, but it's gonna get fucked up if all of us are yawning while the questions are in. Sorry, Dom. Go on.
Okay. Should we do one more before we, get ready to take this on the road for 25-26?
By the way, you texted us to say that you'd got a quiz going for us. If it's only 2 questions, I'll be.
Keep going. I'm time conscious.
Bring it.
Joey,
Okay.
Dom, can you give us the number for Max again, please? I'm taking this quite seriously. How many did he get?
14 goals and 8 assists in 95 appearances, league appearances.
Dom, can I just ask, are there any questions on general vibes? Because that's really where I come into my own.
We need to get the top trumps cards out for that.
Fantastic.
Vibes in hair.
Okay, well, you just let me know.
When Carl McFadzean punched the punch bag, which player had the most surprised reaction? Sorry, Dom, carry on.
Okay, right. So, last one for now is I'm putting Maxime Biamu up against Jordan Shipley. Is Jordan Shipley higher or lower than Maxime Biamu?
He's got to be lower.
By the way, he's absolutely nailing the kind of the corridor of uncertainty.
Yeah, yeah.
You could pick players, but this is. I think Shipley's got to be more.
Yeah, I was going to wait to see what you said, because if you said lower, I'd say I want to work by myself and say more. So I'm going with more as well. We're a team again.
Okay. Right. Jordan Shipley got for Coventry in 133 appearances. He scored 16 goals in the league and he got 11 assists.
Yeah. Jolly good. Well done, us.
He's been released, hasn't he? He's not got a club, right?
Yeah.
He's got released.
That's sad.
What could it be, eh?
But I don't think it's. Sorry to interrupt. I don't think it's what could have been. The entire footballer career path is all. It's luck more than an invention. So he. Forgive me, Jordan, because we love you like a brother, and you're one of us. He probably shouldn't have got as high as the Championship.
Yeah. I just thought it would be quite funny if he'd accidentally made the Prem with us. That was a cool, like on our bench, just accidentally, oh my God, Jordan Shipley's a Prem player for no good reason.
I would have loved it if he had done, and I would have been more than happy for us to pay his wages, to be with us, and to be part of the squad and everything. But in terms of his ability,
oh God,
I wonder whether if you're him, you're really happy that you play in the Championship, and that if you disappear now, it's not like a terrible thing. Hopefully he's really happy with his career. But that you're right, is that actually it doesn't mean he's bad. If he's 29 now and he's playing in non-league, he's just as good as he was when he played for us in the Championship.
He's still got a big old chance, though, I think, hasn't he? I don't know where he'll go, but he's got.
But
It's got a canon of work they can refer to and say, well, actually, I do know how to play football.
But career trajectory, as we all know, is as much based on who you know and what your circumstances are as to how good you are. It's just especially weird when it comes to a footballer. Sorry, Dom, carry on.
That's it. That's the first edition of High and Lower in the bag. And if you
next season,
that's the call to action for next season, to subscribe and comment and drive the engagement and get us to our first million.
All I'll say is, imagine it's ITV in the 1980s. We're watching The Price is Right or whatever, and there's 2 rounds of it, and it takes what? Imagine if I hadn't have just kept talking, it would have taken a minute tops, and then they just go, "Hey, you can fuck off and go watch whatever you want." Whatever else you want.
Sadly, more time for adverts. We can talk about our sponsors in the gaps. There's so much potential is the important thing here.
No, you're right, Dom. I think you're right.
Christ, is that actually is shit. We'd have been in huge legal trouble. So, thank you, Imogen.
Oh, before I go, can I say hello to We All Dream of a Team of Gary Breens, who came up to me at the first half in Sunderland and said, Are you Imogen? I went, yeah, I am. Yeah.
oh yeah,
And he went, You're on Sky Blues Extra, aren't you? And I was like, no. Oh,
You are though, right?
no, wrong one. He was like, oh, Joey's funny, isn't he? I was like,
What would be wrong with being on Sky Blues Extra?
nothing. It's just wrong information, isn't it, Joseph?
Ah,
And
you're right, of course, yeah.
we don't want to put out false information to the viewers, do we? Or, in fact, the listeners.
No. And as well, is that I listen to Sky Blues Extra and that I just love it. I just really think that they do like really fantastic work. I love their content. I love where they get it from. And it doesn't matter where they get it from because they put it out.
Joey, you're a very naughty boy.
No, that was right. Neil, thank you.
thanks so much.
Dom, thank you.
Cheers, you're welcome.
And for what might be the last time this season, thank you. Bye!
Primo ending that one.